Hello, I'm Peter and I'm the Creative Innovation Lead at VCCP. And today I'd like to talk to you about some of the new ways that we have, new methods and outputs that we have to express creativity. I'm going to argue that there's never been a greater number of outlets for creative expression than exist today. I haven't counted them. There certainly seems to be a lot more. Of course, we have all the existing channels for creativity that we've always had, but we also have newer outlets, including voice, which may not have been the gold rush that many people were hoping for, but is still, I think, a largely untapped medium for creativity. And up to things like formation drones putting on firework displays, and using artificial intelligence in new and unexpected ways. On the left, this is using GPT-3, which is a corpus of text which completes text output based on your input. This is a letter that is written from the point of view of a toaster. And on the right, this is a style GAN, which is exploring spaces between images to create brand new images and photos on the fly. But there's so many things to choose from that I've kind of had to reduce down a little the focus of my talk, or I'd be here for an hour. So I want to just focus on 4 things. They are short and live video, games and virtual spaces, digital identity, and enhanced locations. And we'll start with the first of those, obviously, short and live video. Short video is dominated by TikTok, but anytime there's a dominant player, new player in the market, the existing players rush to catch up. So we've seen Instagram release Reels, and YouTube have just announced Shorts. But by far the most dominant is still TikTok, #1 in the field, even if its future is somewhat a little uncertain at the moment because of the proposed ban in the US. People think of TikTok as just, dancing teens, but it's not. It's a window on the world. You can watch a magician here in England. You can watch a children's ceremony in Tibet. You can watch a Chinese farmer performing with and cooking his animals. You can watch a safari park worker playing with lions, but don't try that at home. And what's being done on this platform is so much more than just dancing and pranks. What we got here is the creation of a new generation of creatives. Just take a look at this. Just playing around with editing tools and transitions in an amazingly creative way. And even further beyond that, you see people putting into practice some of the new skills they're learning, such as animation. So I think the barrier to entry for brands is actually very high. You think you might just be able to record something for 15 minutes and put it up there, but you're competing against an awful lot of extremely creative TikTok native young people. The other thing that's interesting in video is the growth of live video. Now, during lockdown, live video kind of came into its own. One of my favorite examples of this is Versus TV, which brings back 2 musicians or artists and pits them against each other to play their back catalogues. They could be DJs, they could be singers. One of the biggest hits was when they reunited Brandy and Monica. Now, people from the 90s will remember that famous feud between Brandy and Monica. Versus TV got them back together to sing their hits. It was the return of appointment viewing. 6 million viewers, 20 million streams in total, and 30 out of 40 songs on the Apple Music R&B and Soul chart after that show were created by Brandy or Monica. And Twitch has been another kind of breakout star during lockdown. Everybody thinks of Twitch as a space for gaming, but Twitch's fastest growing category is called just chatting, and it's literally just that. You can talk or type your messages to influencers. It's also very fast growing music category, and has seen Twitch and Amazon team up to actually send live music streams from Twitch into the Amazon Music app. So massive growth potential there. But where it can go, you have to look at China. And China has been doing live streaming for 4 or 5 years as a very, very serious and large part of the e-commerce economy. And what you see now is far beyond this classic sort of influencer style. You see here the CEO of McDonald's in China, the CEO of HEMA, which is the equivalent of Whole Foods, Trips.com, Louis Vuitton, these big brands and big names from the big brands getting involved directly to sell directly to their consumers. And often with very creative setups. And much more than just sitting down and talking to a camera. The second thing I'd like to look at is games and virtual spaces. Now, games, another huge lockdown smash. As people spent more time at home, hungry for entertainment, they've been turning to games a lot more. And when I say gaming, it's an incredibly broad field. The label game is likely as unhelpful as the label film. It's a medium, it's not a genre. You have puzzle games, you have more social games, you have the big blockbusters like The Last of Us 2, you have esports. There's so many things that fall under the category of games. And people have been saying, because so many people took to games for the lockdown, people have been saying that games have been the new social networks. But in fact, games have been social networks for a very long time. What's new is their scale is starting to approach the smaller, kind of traditionally defined social networks. I think Fortnite probably has more active users than Twitter at the moment. And it's also bringing in people who are not typically considered gamers. In fact, if we look at the audience breakdown, there's predicted to be about 2.7 billion people playing games worldwide by the end of this year. Now, over half of those are in Asia, and just over half of them are male. So almost half of people who play games are female, and over 50% of people who play games are aged over 30. So you might have in mind this kind of stereotypical idea of a gamer, of someone being, a young American boy. But in fact, the profile doesn't fit that at all. It's much more likely to be a 30-plus female in Asia, statistically. And there are different ways that you can get involved with games. Now, the first one and the most obvious one is just to do brand partnerships. And the king of this is Fortnite. Fortnite has done brand partnerships with Nike, with Samsung, with the NFL in the US, with Marvel currently promoting its Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. But the other way to get involved is to actually just use the tools that they provide. Again, on the left, this is Fortnite. The Royal Canadian Legion built what they called Remembrance Island, which was a no fighting, no weapons space where you could explore and learn the history of the soldiers who fell in the two wars from Canada. In the middle, you have Global Pride, which took place in Animal Crossing. And on the right, this was a United for Wildlife creator, got people involved in making a wildlife map in Minecraft. And the third way, and the most interesting way, I think, and hardest, is to do something cool in the game itself. You've probably seen all the talk about Wendy's Keeping Fortnite Fresh promotion, which won some awards. But I think just as interesting and kind of game native was a Latin American chain called Almacenes Éxito, who did a promotion called MVP, or Most Valuable Promo, in the Call of Duty game. And what they did is they paid some of the biggest gamers to change their gamer names to discount prices, like you see here at PS4 with 75% discount. And if you went into Call of Duty and you hunted those players down and you shot them, you could claim that promo code for your own. Really, really smart and a game native way of playing. But you have to really understand games to come up with those really good ideas. That's one of the questions I get asked the most is, one of the things that people say to me the most is, I don't really get gaming, so what do I do? So I think there are two ways that you can understand games and gaming culture. Number one is to play them. It seems obvious, but Fortnite is free to download. There are thousands of free mobile games. You don't need a console. You can play them on your phone. So the number one way for you to get involved in understanding gaming and gaming culture is to pick up a joypad or your mobile and just have a go yourself. And the number two way is to watch them. There are hundreds of thousands of people playing games on Twitch right now. It's a massive free data source for kind of sociological study. And in both of these ways, when you start, you're gonna flounder at first. It's like being dropped into a country where you don't speak the language. But you'll get it. The more time you spend, the more immersed you become in the games and gaming culture, the more it will seem natural to you. The biggest rule I have for when you're dealing with games and gaming culture is explore, don't exploit. If you want to build something in games, if you want to do a games related campaign, work with gamers. There are companies out there, there are teams out there who will build maps for you in Fortnite or in Minecraft or in Animal Crossing. It's better to work with the community than against it. I don't generally like to dunk on people's work, but this was a notable campaign of where it went wrong recently, was when Burger King hijacked Twitch gamers' streams. They would pay them a donation and then promote Burger King products in their promotion, in their tip. And Yes, it was a cheap way to get Burger King's name out to a large audience, but it also alienated that same audience. It alienated the people running the streams, and it alienated the people watching the streams. So the next iteration after games is the move into virtual spaces. And again, Fortnite is far ahead here. Fortnite, you can think of it, I've heard it compared to a skate park. There's a thing that people go there for, but in fact, most of what happens is the socializing around it. People go there to play the Battle Royale game, but in fact, what they're doing is really just hanging out with friends. And Fortnite, obviously ahead of the game, spotted this behavior, and they've launched a Party Royale Island, which is a space where there's no guns, there's no weapons, there's no game mechanics or stuff as such. It's just a place for people to hang out with their friends. And so they've launched concert series in there. They're running some now. They've built a dedicated studio space in LA, and they're inviting artists to drop in there. They'll record it and stream those out into the game. And the way they pitched this was that Fortnite is actually a tour stop. So if you're an artist on tour, you want to make the Fortnite stage one of those stops that you would go to. And again, it's not just Fortnite. Roblox have been doing this. And there's a bunch of emerging virtual spaces that don't have the game mechanic in them, a core game mechanic to them at all. Sensorium is one, which has just had large investment from Tidal, the music streaming service. And Facebook Horizon, or Facebook, there's an area of Horizon called Venues, which is where people go to watch music. They've just announced their first concert series coming soon as well. Because what's happening in the pandemic is we've spent so much time online, it's accelerated the acceptance we have of blending the real world with digital experiences. And just like the real world, when we're in digital worlds, we want to express our identity. So there's an interesting, small but growing sector called direct to avatar, which is physical real world brands working to sell digital clothes to people's avatars. Now, we've seen an example of this with Ralph Lauren teamed up with Bitmoji for their first ever digital collection. Valentino put clothes into Animal Crossing, and Christian Louboutin, for his Paris fashion show, launched a small world and digital outfits inside a game called Zepeto, which is a Korean owned game. This term direct to avatar refers to a business model that sells products directly to avatars or digital identities and then completely bypasses the physical supply chain. And it's not just something that's kind of fun and whimsical. There's value in this. You may have seen an app called Aglet, which is a digital sneaker trading app. We've seen actually some of the top most rare digital items on there have exchanged hands for tens of thousands of dollars. In the middle, there's an app called Dressed, which is a fashion-focused app, which Gucci has just released a digital collection for. And on the right, there's a new business called DressX, where you send in a photo of yourself and buy a digital outfit, and they'll apply that outfit to your photo and send it back to you. So you can kind of flex fashion even if you can't leave the house to actually buy it physically. And there's real money in this. The virtual world is creating its own economy. Virtual items have value because of their scarcity, just like physical items, and because they can be sold or shared. And digital identity is not just on your avatars, it's on your own self too. Spark AR and Snapchat have been around for a few years now, and the amount of creativity in these platforms is growing incredibly. It started off with you could apply filters or lenses to your face, then you can apply filters or lenses to your pet's face. Now you can start to apply filters or lenses to your whole body. And what it's enabling is this amazing outlet for digital creativity and bringing in creators who may not be able to get involved with more complex code-based things. And I think over the last few years, a lot of platforms and brands and agencies have convinced themselves that attention is diminishing and we have really short attention spans. And I don't think that's true. I think that's actually a little bit rude, if we're honest. Netflix wouldn't exist if we had short attention spans. Podcasts wouldn't exist. And people are choosing to spend a long time paying attention to their phone. And on their phones, that's often AR. And that creates incredible opportunities for brands to get involved. Very early on in the lockdown, when Snap Camera became a big deal, Snap Camera, if you don't know, allows you to apply Snapchat lenses to your video conferencing calls like this one. And L'Oreal were very quick and early in there to release a whole range of branded beauty effects that people could use on their video calls. And Fanta is another example, pretty much own Halloween in the kind of AR face lens effects. They've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, releasing these incredibly creative AR effects every year. A growing area in AR is this idea of virtual try-ons. Gucci are leading the way in this. Gucci's app lets you try on a load of their products digitally, just using the camera. You can try on Gucci glasses, you can try on Gucci shoes, you can try on Gucci watches, you can try on Gucci cosmetics. Lots of brands are doing this. Nobody's embraced it quite as wholeheartedly as Gucci. But I also think there's more to be done with this. Why limit yourselves to digital counterparts of physical goods? Why be bound by the laws of physics? This is an app called Super You by Universal Everything that lets people try on these incredible generative outfits that couldn't possibly exist in the real world. But when we do go back to the real world, as well as trying things on yourself, you can now push things out into the world. Apple are doing a great job with this, of showing off their new products in AR with their new laptops, their new watches. You can preview them all in AR using just your browser. Google Arts and Culture and Sotheby's have released a whole range of works of art that you can hang on your walls and see what they look like. Gucci again trying out some of their home furnishings. And this, I think, is a step towards my final point, which is the idea that we're now moving beyond enhancing ourselves to enhancing the world around us. And it starts with the rise of the QR code. I'm sure you kind of failed to notice that QR codes now are everywhere, driven by this need we have not to touch things because of the pandemic. So from the NHS posters to appointments at the Genius Bar in Apple stores to ordering from menus, the QR code has made this huge comeback, and suddenly it's taught people how to use them, and we're able to use them in new and interesting and creative ways again. Apple again are leading with this. If you go through the Apple store, there's loads of these things there now, QR codes or NFC bars, which launch features of the thing you're looking at on your phone. So you don't have to pick up the device and play around with it. You just use your own phone that you already have to scan and preview. But you don't have to just link people to features. You can then start enhancing the things that are around you. This promotion by Adidas for Finish Line stores would launch an AR experience that enhanced the sneaker and created a whole sort of digital collectible around it. Burberry partnered with Google to enhance their pop-ups, and Nike have been working with Snapchat to provide details about the trainers and show the insoles and how they're made when you hold your phone up to a snap code. And a step beyond that again is to start enhancing then the whole world around us. Earlier this year, Snapchat announced local lenses, which are kind of shared and persistent lenses that are attached to the real locations in the physical world. In this example, Carnaby Street. So I could go to Carnaby Street and draw my name in paint on one of the buildings, and a friend of mine could go there 2 days later, hold up his phone and draw his name underneath it. And on the right, this is a Korean temple, Changdeok Arirang, and they're using AR in a super creative way to create these digital tour guides that will tell you the history of the place where you are and what's around you. So we're starting to see the whole world become a canvas. Google have released what are called shared cloud anchors. Shared cloud anchors are similar to the Snapchat local lenses. When you create an AR experience, you can attach it to a location. Not just using geolocation, but actually connected to the physical, the buildings, the planes, and the horizontal and vertical planes, and the fabric of the buildings, and then share them with your friends and the whole world. So people can go along to these spaces, and there will be digital experiences there waiting for them that you have made. You can also guide your friends to them using Earth Cloud anchors. Think of this as like Pokemon Go for everything. The whole world has become potential creative canvas for you. And this is great, but it's also kind of nervous, because when you're doing something with AR, you're giving over about 80% of the pixels to the audience, and you're letting them reshape their narrative. And that's going to be, I think, one of the hardest things for brands to accept and understand. So in summary, these are just some of the things that I'm excited about. There's never been more opportunities for creativity. And I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be thinking about how we use technology to enhance ourselves, the world, and the virtual world at the same time. Thank you very much for listening.